In the 3rd century, the ancient Chinese historical text known as the Records of the Three Kingdoms, specifically the Jishi Wajandan, recorded the existence of a unique island nation called Yamatai, ruled by a mysterious shaman queen named Himiko. While Japan's own earliest surviving chronicles, the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, remained completely silent about her, continental sources depicted her as an exceptionally powerful and diplomatic ruler. The ancient map of East Asia during this period revealed that the Japanese archipelago was not a unified country under a single emperor, but was instead divided into more than 100 independent tribal clans. The Chinese referred to these early inhabitants collectively as the Wa, and they lived scattered across various small island settlements spanning from Kyushu to the Honshu mainland. This era corresponded to a crucial transition in ancient Japanese history, moving from the agricultural Yei culture to the early tomb-building Kofun period. During this time, early Japanese society underwent profound changes in its economic and political structure, as local chieftains began to form regional confederations to control arable land and essential water sources. The rapid spread of wet rice cultivation from the 2nd century BCE changed the lifestyle of the ancient Wa people. Shifting from nomadic hunting and gathering to permanent agricultural settlements allowed the tribes to accumulate surplus wealth, which eventually led to the emergence of distinct social classes and the rise of local political elites. Meanwhile, the introduction of advanced iron farming tools and bronze weapons from the Korean peninsula accelerated the division of power among the clans. These new metal implements allowed for more efficient land cultivation, but they also significantly increased the lethality of warfare during tribal conflicts over scarce resources and prestige goods. Wealthy regional chieftains began constructing fortified settlements surrounded by deep defensive ditches and heavy wooden stockades to protect their grain storehouses from rivals. These small local disputes over territory and irrigation channels quickly escalated into larger, violent conflicts between the major clans inhabiting the fertile river valleys of ancient Japan during this transitional era. The famous Yashinagari archaeological site in modern-day Saga Prefecture stands as the most prominent evidence of these fortified Yei settlements. Archaeologists excavating the site discovered double-layered defensive trenches and reconstructed high wooden watchtowers, proving that these ancient communities faced constant threats of military invasion from neighboring tribes and had to adapt their defensive layouts accordingly. The growing population and the scarcity of fertile farmland led to the formation of early military aristocracies. Tribal leaders asserted their authority by hoarding prestige goods, particularly bronze bells known as ditaku and imported Chinese bronze mirrors, which served as powerful symbols of both political power and spiritual authority during these competitive times. Maritime trade routes along the southern coast of the Wa territory connected these independent clans with the Gaya Confederacy in the southern Korean peninsula. Through dangerous voyages in simple wooden dugout canoes, the Wa traders exchanged domestic agricultural grain for raw iron blocks and advanced clay pottery techniques that transformed their domestic industry. However, the uneven distribution of resources and the struggle to control raw iron imports pushed regional tensions past a breaking point. The fragile equilibrium among the Wa tribes collapsed entirely, triggering a prolonged period of violent, widespread warfare that devastated the agricultural communities across the Japanese archipelago during the 2nd century. This period of extreme chaos was recorded by Chinese chroniclers as the Great Civil War of Wa, occurring towards the end of the 2nd century. Historical records described a state of constant warfare lasting between 70 and 80 years, during which numerous clans fought fiercely for supremacy without any centralized leadership to restore peace. The Jishi Wajandan recorded that the land of Wa fell into perpetual conflict, with rival chieftains attacking each other year after year. Agricultural fields were abandoned, entire villages were burned to the ground, and many displaced commoners fled into the deep mountain forests to seek temporary refuge from the ongoing violence. Weapons used on these ancient battlefields included long wooden spears, iron swords, and bows firing arrows tipped with stone or imported metal heads. Battles were fought at the narrow entrances of river valleys, where clans erected defensive wooden barricades to block the advance of hostile forces seeking to plunder their grain. The devastation of the Civil War brought immense suffering to the Wa people, and severely weakened their early agricultural economy. Tens of thousands of people perished from starvation and spreading diseases, as successive crop harvests were systematically destroyed by roaming war parties during these long decades of conflict that tore the Yamatai region apart. Many male chieftains attempted to use military force and brutal coercion to impose their rule over the other clans, but they all failed. The loose military alliances led by these male kings disintegrated quickly, whenever their leaders were killed in battle or betrayed by their own allies who sought better terms. The decades-long military stalemate proved that raw violence could not restore order or unity to the troubled land of Wa. Growing disillusionment with the rule of male kings prompted the regional clan leaders to seek an entirely new method of governance based on spiritual mediation and ancient religious rituals that could bridge the political divide between the warring clans. They realized that only a supreme spiritual authority, capable of communicating directly with the gods and ancestral spirits, could convince the proud chieftains to lay down their weapons. The concept of an independent, neutral shaman ruler acting as a mediator began to gain widespread support among the major clan leaders of the Confederation. After many tense negotiations among the leaders of the largest clans, they decided to elevate a prominent female shaman to lead their confederation. The person chosen was Himiko, a mature unmarried woman possessing extraordinary spiritual abilities, who lived a secluded life in the disputed region of Yamatai and served as an intermediary to the spirit world. The selection of Queen Himiko marked a significant historical turning point, shifting the power dynamic of ancient Japan from military might to religious consensus. This coronation was based on the absolute belief of the Wa people in her supernatural ability to communicate with the powerful unseen spirits that controlled their agricultural fortune. Immediately upon her ascension, Queen Himiko established a stable confederation of over 30 major independent tribal clans, who voluntarily submitted to her spiritual authority. This event officially ended the Great Civil War of Wa, bringing peace and a primitive form of unification to the Japanese archipelago during her early reign. The coronation of Queen Himiko was held solemnly before the assembled leaders of the Yamatai Confederation. In front of a large ritual fire, she performed a sacred ceremony dedicated to the sun deity to legitimize her divine mandate as the new ruler of the unified clans under her spiritual guidance. Queen Himiko's authority was not maintained through conventional military force or administrative decree, but rather through her supreme spiritual prestige. Her prophetic pronouncements were accepted by the clan leaders as the direct will of the gods, which all members of the Yamatai Confederation were obligated to follow without question to prevent divine anger and crop failure. The Jishi Wagendan recorded that Queen Himiko ruled her kingdom by employing a spiritual practice called Kaido, an early form of Japanese shamanism. Kaido focused on the worship of natural spirits and ancestral deities, using magic to predict weather patterns and ensure successful harvests for the Wa people who relied on farming. This practice of Kaido allowed Queen Himiko to make critical political and social decisions by interpreting divine signs. Her prophecies regarding rainfall, agricultural pests, and potential conflicts helped the Yamatai Confederation avoid several devastating natural disasters and maintain internal harmony among the clans throughout her long reign, protecting their agricultural livelihoods. One of the core rituals of Kaido involved scapulomancy, the practice of heating a deer's shoulder blade bone over a ritual fire until cracks appeared. Queen Himiko would directly observe the direction and shape of these fractures to interpret the intentions of the gods protecting the Yamatai kingdom from external threats. The use of highly polished circular bronze mirrors was another essential component of Queen Himiko's sacred rituals. She believed that these reflective bronze discs could capture and project the light of the sun, which was revered as the supreme source of life and agricultural fertility across the early Japanese islands during the Yei period. Queen Himiko's devotion to the sun deity laid the primitive foundation for Shinto, the native belief system of Japan. The purification rituals she performed, which involved bathing in cool river water to wash away spiritual impurities, are considered the historic origin of the misogi purification ceremony still practiced by modern Shinto priests today. The strong spiritual authority of the queen maintained absolute political stability within the Yamatai Confederation for several decades. Fear of the spiritual world and her divine connections prevented any rebellious plans from the most ambitious tribal chiefs, who feared that the gods would punish their clans with famine if they disobeyed. However, Queen Himiko's selection of Yamatai as her capital unwittingly initiated a long-standing academic debate among modern historians and archaeologists. The exact location of the Yamatai kingdom remains the greatest unresolved mystery in the study of early Japanese history, as no surviving written records clearly specify its geographical coordinates on the map. Modern historical researchers are divided into two main opposing schools of thought regarding the true location of Yamatai. One group of scholars strongly supports the Kyushu theory in the south, while the other group advocates for the Kinki theory located in the Kansai region of Honshu Island, near modern-day Nara Prefecture. According to descriptions in the Jishi Wajinden, after ascending the throne, Queen Himiko ordered the construction of a massive wooden palace to serve as her primary residence. This palace was designed as a secure fortress, completely separated from the common residential areas of the ordinary Wa people to ensure her safety during turbulent times. The palace of Queen Himiko was surrounded by high stockades made of thick upright logs and guarded by tall wooden watchtowers. This strict defensive layout reflected the extreme caution taken by the Confederation leaders to protect the sacred Shaman queen from potential assassination, attempts by rival clans or foreign agents who opposed Yamatai. The shamaness chose a life of absolute seclusion within the dark inner chambers of her fortified palace, rarely appearing before her subjects. Her complete absence from public view served to heighten the sense of mystery and divine authority surrounding the supreme ruler, making her seem like a living deity to the Wa people of Yamatai. Chinese records indicate that there were 1,000 female attendants serving inside Queen Himiko's palace to manage her daily needs and maintain the royal household. However, these female servants were restricted to the outer sections of the residence and were strictly forbidden from directly looking at the face of the shaman queen during her rituals. The only male allowed inside the palace was a single trusted attendant who acted as Queen Himiko's intermediary to the outside world. This male servant was responsible for delivering her meals, bringing water, and conveying the shaman queen's prophetic messages to the council of chieftains who gathered outside the palace walls of Yamatai. The council of tribal leaders representing the Yamatai Confederation regularly waited outside the wooden stockade of the palace to receive her political directions. All major decisions, including the distribution of agricultural lands and the dispatch of diplomatic envoys to China, had to be approved through the words of this single male intermediary of the queen. This extreme isolation transformed the queen into a supernatural entity in the minds of the Yamatai population. The common people believed that she spent all her time performing magical ceremonies to communicate with ancestral spirits, securing favorable weather, good crops, and divine protection for the entire island nation of Wa during her reign. The architectural design of Queen Himiko's palace shares many structural features with the fortified Yae settlements discovered at the Yoshinagari archaeological site. The technique of using massive vertical logs driven deep into the ground to create defensive walls was a standard protective engineering practice in ancient Japan during the 3rd century of the CE. A dedicated guard of hundreds of male warriors, equipped with wooden spears, shields, and iron weapons, patrolled the perimeter of the palace stockade. They were responsible for ensuring that no unauthorized persons could enter the sacred grounds of Queen Himiko, maintaining strict security around the clock to prevent any disruption of her sacred rituals. Inside the central chamber filled with the scent of burning herbs, the shamaness conducted daily rituals before her circular bronze mirrors. The flickering light from the fireplace cast dancing shadows on the timber walls, creating an atmosphere of spiritual mystery that reinforced her absolute authority over the chieftains of Yamatai for many years. The Jishi Wajinden provided highly valuable details about the hierarchical social structure of the Yamatai kingdom under Queen Himiko's administration. The society was divided into two primary classes, consisting of the ruling aristocracy who controlled resources and the general population who performed manual labor and paid taxes to the state during the Yae period. The ruling elites of Yamatai were referred to by the Chinese character term daren in the ancient historical texts, meaning great men. These aristocrats owned substantial plots of land, held numerous domestic servants, and occupied the most important administrative and military positions outside the palace of Queen Himiko during her long reign. Conversely, the majority of the population who worked as farmers and artisans were known collectively as the Giko, or commoners. These commoners were required to obey the daron completely, paying heavy tribute in the form of grain and woven cloth to support the ruling class and the palace of Queen Himiko in Yamatai. To show respect, when a commoner of the Giko class met a daron noble on the roads of Yamatai, they had to follow strict social etiquette. The commoner was required to step off the path into the grass, kneel down on the dirt ground, and place both hands flat in front of them as a sign of absolute submission. To maintain public order, Queen Himiko and the Council of Chieftains enforced a set of strict laws throughout the Yamatai Confederation. If a commoner violated these laws, the authorities would immediately confiscate all their property and convert their family members into domestic slaves, known as the nuhai, to serve the nobles of Yamatai. For the most severe crimes, such as treason against the state or insulting the sacred spirits, the laws of Yamatai prescribed the execution of the criminal's entire family. All relatives of the offender would be executed publicly or exiled to remote border regions to prevent any future rebellion against Queen Himiko's rule in Wa. The economic foundation of Yamatai depended heavily on the agricultural labor of the Giko commoners in the river valleys of the Wa territory. They cultivated grains, millet, and notably developed wet rice farming techniques on early terraced fields, which provided the food surplus necessary to sustain the political federation under Queen Himiko's guidance. In addition to farming, the women of the Yamatai kingdom achieved a high level of skill in textile production using wild hemp and silk. They raised silkworms on large wooden racks, spun silk threads, and wove high-quality fabrics that were used to dress the ruling aristocracy and served as prestigious diplomatic gifts for China. Ancient Chinese chronicles described the men of Wa as having geometric tattoos covering their faces and bodies. These tattoos originally served a practical purpose to protect tribal divers from attacks by large fish and sharks while gathering shellfish, but they eventually evolved into social symbols representing different tribal ranks and lineages in Yamatai. The clothing worn by the Wa people during the reign of the queen was very simple, reflecting the primitive weaving technology of the Yei period. Men wore broadcloths wrapped around their bodies and tied at the shoulders, while women wore simple dresses made from flat fabrics with a hole cut in the center for the head. During the 3rd century, the political situation in mainland China was marked by the deep division of the historic Three Kingdoms period. The rival states of Cao-Wei, Shu-Han, and Eastern Wu fought continuously for supreme control over the empire, creating a highly volatile regional environment that influenced neighboring territories across East Asia, including Wa. Recognizing an opportunity to strengthen her political legitimacy through relations with the mainland, Queen Himiko decided to make a bold diplomatic move. In the year 239 of the CE, she sent her first official embassy across the sea to the court of Cao-Wei to establish formal diplomatic relations and secure imperial recognition. This historic diplomatic delegation was led by 2 senior officials of Yamatai named Nashim and Sushi, who carried valuable tribute to the capital. They presented 10 domestic slaves, 5 men and 5 women, along with several pieces of high-quality, patterned fabric woven by Yamatai artisans to show respect to the northern Cao-Wei emperor. The journey of the embassy from the Yamatai kingdom to the Chinese capital of Luoyang was extremely long and filled with maritime dangers. The envoys had to cross the turbulent Tsushima Strait on simple wooden boats before landing on the Korean peninsula, from where they traveled overland under imperial protection toward the capital. After crossing the strait, the delegation of Nashim arrived at Daefeng Commandery, a key administrative outpost of the Cao-Wei dynasty in the northern Korean peninsula. The governor of Daefeng issued travel documents to the Wa envoys and provided soldiers to escort the diplomatic mission safely to the Chinese mainland for their audience. The envoys of Yamatai traveled on foot for several months through the vast northern provinces of China to reach the capital of Luoyang. The appearance of these Wa travelers, with their unique clothing, facial tattoos, and unfamiliar language, attracted significant attention from the court officials and citizens of the Wei Empire during their stay. At the Luoyang Palace, Emperor Cao Rui of the Cao Wei dynasty received Queen Himiko's diplomatic delegation with great ceremony. The Wei emperor recognized that establishing a strategic alliance with the Hua kingdom in the east would help contain the hostile forces of Goguryeo in the Liaodong region and secure his northern borders. To demonstrate his favor, Emperor Cao Rui issued an imperial decree officially titled the Queen as the Queen of Hua friendly to Wei. This prestigious title recognized Himiko as a strategic ally of the Chinese Empire, elevating her political standing and providing her with absolute legitimacy over the other rival Hua clans in the archipelago. Along with the title, the Cao Wei Emperor presented Queen Himiko with a golden square seal featuring a camel-shaped handle, a design reserved for valued foreign rulers. This official seal was accompanied by a purple silk sash, which served as a supreme symbol of political authority recognized by the civil administrations of the mainland. The most significant gift sent by the Wei Emperor to the shamaness was a collection of 100 bronze mirrors decorated with patterns of mythological beasts on the reverse side. These bronze mirrors, cast in imperial workshops, became highly prized ritual objects that reinforced the shaman queen's divine connection to the sun deity of Yamatai. The diplomatic success of 239 granted the Yamatai kingdom a superior political position over the other independent clans of the Hua territory. Being recognized by the powerful Cao Wei dynasty allowed Queen Himiko to solidify her supreme authority, as her rivals dared not challenge a ruler backed by the massive continental empire of China. In the year 240, the Wei governor of Daifeng sent a Chinese official named Gong Zai to the Yamatai kingdom to deliver the golden seal and imperial gifts. This historic visit marked the first time that an official diplomatic mission from the Chinese mainland set foot on the soil of ancient Japan, establishing direct contact with Himiko. The embassy of Gong Zai presented the imperial credentials and gifts directly to the representatives of Queen Himiko at the palace of Yamatai. The presence of these foreign officials, dressed in rich silk robes, amazed the local chieftains of the Confederation and significantly elevated the prestige of the shaman queen in their eyes during the ceremony. The following years witnessed active diplomatic exchanges between the Yamatai kingdom and the Cao Wei dynasty through regular sending of envoys across the sea. Queen Himiko sent additional tribute to China to exchange for silk fabrics, wool robes, and most importantly, metal weapons and tools that improved agricultural productivity in the Hua territory. However, the recognition from the Cao Wei dynasty could not prevent internal geopolitical conflicts from erupting within the Japanese archipelago. A powerful military force to the south began to emerge, directly challenging the spiritual authority of Queen Himiko and threatening the unity of the Yamatai Confederation during the late 240s. The most dangerous opponent of Yamatai was the kingdom of Kuna, located in the southern region of the archipelago, likely in Kyushu. Kuna was ruled by a male king named Himiko, a proud military leader who consistently refused to submit to the spiritual authority of Queen Himiko and sought to dismantle her Yamatai Federation. Unlike Yamatai, which was governed through spiritual prestige, the kingdom of Kuna possessed a highly aggressive and well-equipped infantry force. King Himiko united several southern tribes, forming a powerful military alliance to prepare for a total war aimed at overthrowing the political dominance of Queen Himiko's confederation in Hua during the middle of the 3rd century. The long-standing hostility between the two kingdoms of Yamatai and Kuna quickly escalated into a full-scale war in the year 247 of the CE. Intense battles were fought along the major river valleys of the region, where both armies erected defensive wooden stockades and launched arrows at each other during the bloody conflict. Realizing that her forces faced significant disadvantages against the mobile infantry of the Kuna kingdom, Queen Himiko sent envoys to Daifeng Commandery. She requested the Wei governor to intervene in the conflict, asking for diplomatic mediation and direct military support to protect the Yamatai Confederation from collapse during the war. In response to the request, the governor of Daifeng sent a Chinese diplomatic official named Zhang Zheng to the Hua territory. Zhang Zheng carried an imperial decree from the Cao Wei court and was accompanied by an armed escort to restore peace between the warring confederations of Yamatai and Kuna in the year 247. The arrival of the diplomatic mission of Zhang Zheng in Yamatai provided a major psychological boost to the forces of the queen. The Wei official read the imperial decree before the gathered chieftains, warning King Himiko of Kuna to cease all hostile military actions against the officially recognized ally of the Wei Empire. While the imperial decree read by Zhang Zheng helped temporarily slow the advance of the Kuna forces, King Himiko did not completely accept peace. The Kuna leader maintained small-scale military raids against the border settlements of Yamatai, keeping the confederation in a state of high tension and testing the strength of the alliance daily. The prolonged war of attrition with the Kuna kingdom exhausted the resources and physical strength of the Yamatai Confederation under Queen Himiko's rule. The Shaman Queen's spiritual authority was severely tested, as her magical rituals and predictions failed to bring a quick, decisive military victory to the defensive forces of the Wa Alliance. Several chieftains within the Confederation began to question the protective power of the gods associated with Yamatai during the ongoing devastation of the war. This growing internal division put Queen Himiko in an extremely difficult political position, leaving her isolated inside her palace while the enemy Kuna forces pressed on the borders. While the war with the Kuna kingdom was still unresolved, the queen passed away around the year 248 of the CE. The sudden death of the legendary Shaman Queen, who was said to be over 90 years old, threw the Yamatai kingdom into immediate political chaos and disrupted the defense of the Wa territory. The death of Queen Himiko in approximately 248 of the CE brought an end to her nearly half-century reign over the Yamatai Confederation. The entire kingdom was plunged into deep mourning and uncertainty, as they had lost the unique shamanic mediator who had maintained the peace and held the diverse Wa clans together. To honor their deceased ruler, the people of the Yamatai kingdom constructed a massive circular burial mound as her final resting place. Tens of thousands of Giko commoners were mobilized from across the Wa territory to transport earth and stones, building a grand tomb that reflected the supreme authority she had held in life. The tomb of Queen Himiko was built in the early Kofun style, with a diameter recorded in the Jishi Wagendan as measuring more than 100 paces across. Around the perimeter of this earthen mound, the builders erected hundreds of large wooden posts to mark the boundaries of the sacred space and protect her resting place. The Jishi Wagendan also recorded a grim detail, stating that more than 100 male and female slaves were sacrificed and buried along with Queen Himiko to serve her in the afterlife. This large-scale sacrificial burial practice, known as junshi, demonstrated the absolute power that the Shaman Queen possessed in ancient Wa society during this era. Following the burial of Queen Himiko, the Yamatai Confederation immediately faced a severe succession crisis that threatened to tear the alliance apart. The Council of Chieftains initially decided to place a male king on the throne to lead the state, hoping he could manage the ongoing military campaign against the hostile forces of Kuna. However, the selection of this male king was met with immediate resistance from the member clans of the Confederation, who had only ever submitted to Queen Himiko's spiritual power. Internal civil conflict erupted once again, breaking the political unity of Yamatai as various Wa factions refused to recognize the authority of the new male ruler. The violent civil war that followed the death of Himiko claimed the lives of more than 1,000 Wa people. Villages were burned, agricultural harvests were destroyed, and the Yamatai Confederation faced the immediate threat of total collapse as the rival Kuna kingdom took advantage of the internal division to advance their forces further. To prevent total ruin, the chieftains decided to depose the ineffective male king and elevate a 13-year-old girl named Iyo to the throne. Iyo was a relative of Queen Himiko and was believed to possess the same extraordinary shamanic abilities to communicate with ancestral spirits and unify the warring Wa clans. The ascension of the young Queen Iyo had an immediate pacifying effect, as the warring factions of Wa agreed to lay down their weapons. Social order was quickly restored throughout the Yamatai territory, demonstrating that the political stability of the Confederation depended entirely on the spiritual authority of a female shaman ruler from Himiko's lineage. In the year 250, Queen Iyo dispatched an official diplomatic mission across the sea to the court of Wei to report on her ascension. This mission, which was received by the Chinese governor of Daifeng, was intended to reaffirm the strategic alliance between Yamatai and the powerful continental empire of China. Despite her historical importance, Queen Himiko completely disappeared from the official chronicles of Japan, such as the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, which were compiled in the 8th century. These imperial records, which detailed the origins of the Yamato dynasty, made no mention of her name or the Yamatai kingdom in their texts. This remarkable omission has led modern historians to believe that the compilers of the Nihon Shoki deliberately excluded Queen Himiko to protect the legitimacy of the imperial line. The court sought to project an unbroken lineage of male emperors centered in the Yamato region of Kinki, rather than acknowledging an earlier shaman queen of Yamatai. Some scholars have attempted to link Queen Himiko with the legendary Empress Jingu, who is described in the Nihon Shoki as a powerful shamanic ruler who led a military expedition to the Korean peninsula. While their dates do not align perfectly, both figures reflect the early Japanese tradition of female political leaders who possessed shamanic authority in Wa. Another popular theory identifies the shamaness as the historical basis for Amaterasu, the sun goddess of Shinto mythology. Proponents of this theory point to the correlation between the solar eclipse recorded in the year 248 and the death of Himiko, which mirrors the myth of the sun goddess hiding inside a cave. Meanwhile, the intense academic debate over the exact geographical location of the Yamatai kingdom continues to divide modern Japanese historians between the Kyushu theory and the Kinki theory. Each hypothesis is supported by significant archaeological finds, making it highly difficult to establish a definitive consensus without further evidence from the 3rd century of the CE. Supporters of the Kyushu theory point to the extensive Yae ruins at Yoshinagari in Saga Prefecture as the likely site of Yamatai. The double trenches, watchtowers, and large numbers of bronze mirrors found at the site match the descriptions of Queen Himiko's fortified palace recorded in the Jishi Wajinden chronicles. Conversely, advocates of the Kinki theory argue that Yamatai was located in Nara Prefecture, serving as the direct predecessor to the unified Yamato state. They base their arguments on the linguistic similarities between the names Yamatai and Yamato, as well as the discovery of large wooden structures at the Makimuku archaeological site in Honshu. The central focus of the Kinki theory is the Hashihaka Kafun, a massive keyhole-shaped burial mound measuring 280 meters long in Sakurai, Nara Prefecture. Radiocarbon dating suggests that this monumental tomb was constructed in the mid-3rd century, which matches the period of Queen Himiko's death in Wa. However, the Imperial Household Agency of Japan currently prohibits any archaeological excavations inside the Hashihaka Kafun. The agency maintains this restriction to protect the sanctity of the imperial tombs, leaving the true identity of the person buried inside a mystery, and keeping Himiko's final resting place unverified by modern science. Nevertheless, archaeologists working on neighboring Kafun tombs in the Kinki region have discovered hundreds of triangular-rimmed bronze mirrors, decorated with patterns of deities and beasts. Many scholars believe these objects represent the 100 bronze mirrors that the Cao Wei Emperor presented to the Queen's envoys in Luoyang during 239. The unification of the Wa tribes under the Yamatai Confederation laid the historical foundation for the development of the early Japanese state. The period from 250 of the CE onward saw the rapid growth of the Kafun period, characterized by the construction of monumental tombs and the centralization of regional authority across Honshu. By the 4th century, the Yamato court inherited the political lineage established by Queen Himiko's confederation to build a unified dynasty across the Japanese islands. Local chieftains gradually surrendered their independence, submitting to the central authority of the emperors established in the fertile plains of the Kinki region of Honshu. Today, Queen Himiko is celebrated as a popular cultural icon, representing the dawn of Japanese civilization. Her legacy is honored in school textbooks, featured in popular media, and celebrated in annual historical festivals held in Yoshinagari Saga Prefecture, where residents dress in reconstructed garments of the Yae period to honor her. While modern excavations at the Yoshinagari archaeological site continue to yield new artifacts, the definitive answer regarding the location of Yamatai remains elusive. The quiet rice fields surrounding the ancient settlements offer no final clues, leaving historians to debate the exact coordinates of the Shaman Queen's capital in ancient Japan. The monumental Hashihaka coffin in Nara Prefecture stands silently under ancient trees, keeping the secrets of Queen Himiko's remains hidden from the modern world. The legacy of the first shaman queen to unify the warring Wa tribes remains buried deep within the historic soil of ancient Japan, waiting to be eventually uncovered.